Coming up on today's show, we're going to check out some trade targets for the Browns before training camp and look at ESPN's edge rusher rankings and see where they put Myles Garrett. Now, unlike ESPN, we do not hide behind a paywall. So if you want to join our Browns community, hit that subscribe button down below. I was looking at the YouTube analytics and 48% of you guys are not subscribed. So join our channel here at the Cleveland Browns Report and lock yourself in for the best free Browns content. We're talking trade targets on today's show. Everyone loves a good trade video from time to time. Now, the targets on today's show, I'll put a quick disclaimer on and say, we're not looking for guys that can come in and start for this team because the Browns don't really have any vacant starting roles. Like, I don't think there's a man in free agency that they could sign that would start tomorrow, and I don't think there's a realistic realistic trade target they could get that would start tomorrow. That's just how loaded this Browns roster is. But I do want to plug some of the holes on this roster because this team is all in on 2024. So don't hold back. So the first guy we're going to look at is tight end Mo Alie-Cox, VCU basketball legend. Didn't play football until he got to the Colts before that was his freshman year of high school. Now he is entering the final year of a 3-year, $18 million contract he signed. He's got a $5.4 million base salary. Whenever we're talking trades, you want to look at a player's base salary because that's what you are inheriting. Now, sometimes a team will eat a good chunk of their salary to help facilitate a trade, or the player themselves will agree to a new contract to get a trade done if he also wants to go to a new team. Now, why would the Colts be interested in trading away Mo Alie-Cox? Well, since 2021, they have drafted 4 tight ends. So clearly there is a youth movement going on at the tight end position, and that might push out the near 31-year-old tight end. Now, over the last couple of years for Indianapolis, he's been one thing, consistent, right? Like, look, 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns. We're not finding a tight end here that's going to do a better job than David Njoku, and that's perfectly fine. I don't want to find one. Like, you've got a great tight end in David Njoku. But I do want to find a tight end that can push Jordan Akins for that backup tight end role a little bit, because the tight end room after the Chief, it's a bit shaky. And I do think if the Browns are looking to plug roster holes, they are looking to just shore up the last line of defense, where if something were to happen to David Njoku, they can feel somewhat confident in the rest of the tight end room, holding down the fort for however long Njoku is out. The Browns tight end room, if you look across their depth chart, it might be the shallowest. Like, it's the one spot where if an injury were to occur, I would not be confident in the next man up. Whereas other rooms, like if something were to happen to, say, Denzel Ward for 4 weeks, I'm confident in Martin Emerson filling his role well, right? Same can be said at the maybe wide receiver position. Like, you got Jerry Jeudy, you got Elijah Moore if something were to happen to Cooper. If something happens to David Njoku, I can't say I'm all that confident in Jordan Akins after the season he had last year. But I do want to just take a moment right now and appreciate the Browns roster. Like, this offseason has been maybe one of the more quieter offseasons for the Browns. They didn't trade for a quarterback. They didn't draft a quarterback. They didn't get a new head coach. And those are things that usually happen every single offseason for this fan base. But Andrew Berry has put this roster in such a great spot where there wasn't a lot of fine-tuning or work that had to be done. So the genesis of today's video is just plugging some of the last little holes on this roster and getting it ready to be a playoff winning roster, not just a playoff appearance roster. Now, speaking of Andrew Berry, how would you grade him as a GM? We've got a fun question at the end of today's video, so make sure you stick around for that. It's kind of revolving around Andrew Berry. But let me know what grade you'd give Andrew Berry so far as the Cleveland Browns GM. I'd give him an A. I do think Andrew Berry has put this roster in such a great spot that even starting 5 quarterbacks last year, they won 11 games. Give him consistent quarterback play, and this is a Super Bowl caliber team. Moving on to our second trade target, I'm going to go with cornerback Kaiir Elam. Same train of thought goes for him as it did for Mo Alie-Cox. I am not looking for a starting corner. This team does not need a starting corner. But I would not be opposed to finding some more depth at the cornerback position. Now, some background on Elam. He was a first-round draft pick out of Florida in 2022. I remember this pick, and I remember liking just the the overall process the Bills went through to go, you know what? We don't have a major hole in our roster, but cornerback is just such an important piece. And if we're going to take down Patrick Mahomes, we're going to have some good depth at that spot. So let's go reinforce our DBs. And that's what they did with Elam. Now, the selection itself was not the right one, but I do think going down that train of thought was the appropriate mindset. Unfortunately, it just hasn't worked out for Elam in Buffalo. He's got 8 starts through 2 seasons. He was a healthy scratch 10 times over those 2 seasons, and he was benched numerous times. And despite a lot of injuries popping up in the Bills secondary, which he was partially included in those injuries, there were ample opportunities for him to get on the field and stay on the field, and he was never able to run with those opportunities. But if I know Andrew Berry, he loves 2 things: cornerbacks and talent. Whenever Andrew Berry is looking to add a guy in free agency, he'll always turn to someone who was a high draft pick, loaded with talent, but for one reason or another didn't work out at his last stop. We have seen him go down that path before in free agency and in trades. Went after Jerry Jeudy, first-round draft pick. Went after Deshaun Watson, first-round draft pick. The list goes on and on here. So, with that, coupled with the fact that he does love his cornerback depth, and we've seen that with the draft picks of Martin Emerson when the Browns didn't really need a corner. That was the first selection they made. Greg Newsome. They had Greedy Williams. Still wanted another corner. So, would you put it past Andrew Berry to look at Kaiir Elam as the quintessential one man's trash is another man's treasure? Now, unfortunately, Elam has not had a really good start to his NFL career. And I'm not going to stand up here and say, yeah, this is going to be a hidden gem for the Browns. But I can see how Andrew Berry lands on a guy like Kaiir Elam for, very low draft pick going the other way and just bringing on some more competition and depth in that cornerback room. The Browns are not in need of another starting cornerback, but they do have to acknowledge the fact that Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, 2 players that have missed about 20% of games in their NFL careers, are likely going to miss some time. It would be foolish to just bury your head in the sand and hope all 3 corners play all 17 games this year. So for the Browns, they don't have a lot of needs right now, but one of them could be adding some more depth at a cornerstone position that has dealt with injuries throughout the last couple of seasons. Now, before we get to the rest of today's show, I do want to tell everyone watching about our wonderful sponsor today, Mando. Summer is here, and I don't want you guys being the sweaty ones at the bus stop or at your office or hopefully not in summer school. But with Mando, you can kick that bad odor to the curb. School's out, it's summer, and sun's out, and Mando Whole Body Deodorant will be your best friend this summer. Mando is clinically proven to control odor for 72 hours, safe for the whole body, pits, package, feet, and everywhere in between, stops odor before it starts, and it's available in 4 cologne quality scents: Bourbon Leather, Mount Fuji, Pro Sport, and Clover Woods. Now, I love using Mando because I like walking to work when the weather is nice, and it's a long walk, about a mile and a half, 30 minutes. And so I walk into the office already working up a bit of a sweat, but I've got Mando waiting for me at my desk to kick that sweat and to kick that BO out the front door. So I invite you to do the same. Get started with Mando today because I've got an awesome deal for the Dog Pound. You can get $5 off their starter pack when you use code CHAT at shopmando.com. Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. And like I said, you guys can get $5 off that great starter pack, which equates to over 40% off altogether when you use code CHAT at shopmando.com. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Moving on to our third and final trade target, let's go with offensive tackle Larry Borom. I've got the same train of thought that I have for Kaiir Elam that I have for Larry Borom, which is you don't need a starting player really anywhere on the field, so why not just reinforce another cornerstone position like offensive tackle? So background information on Mr. Borom. He was a 5th-round draft pick out of Mizzou. In his NFL career, he's got 23 starts and 39 game appearances, And he's been all over the offensive line, primarily at the tackle position and specifically right tackle, but he's played left tackle, he's played both guard spots, and he's got lots of experience. And the Browns learned last year just how valuable quality offensive tackle depth is. Now, hopefully they do not run into 3 starting tackles going down in back-to-back seasons, but Andrew Berry may just go, you know what? Screw doubling down on offensive tackle. We're going to triple down on offensive tackle because we learned our lesson the hard way last year, how important it is to have quality depth at cornerstone positions, which in Berry and the Browns' defense last year, they did. DeJuan Jones was a really good quality backup. He eventually became a starter. Unfortunately, they lost him. And like I said at the top of the video, it is all chips in on 2024. And if there's an opportunity to just shore up and plug a tiny little hole at an offensive tackle position, just in case something happens to one of your top 3 guys, would anyone put it past Andrew Berry to pull the trigger on a trade like that? Now, Larry Borom, 3 years into the NFL, he's been in and out of the starting lineup for the Bears, and I'm not going to sing his praises as one of the top tackles in football. Last year, Pro Football Focus ranked him 74th out of 81, but the year before that, 50th out of 81, which for a backup offensive tackle to be right around middle of the pack, anyone going to have an issue with that? Like, you're not going to put together the Avenger squad here. Not every single player on the roster can be a Pro Bowl player. But the question Andrew Berry and the Browns have to answer is, are they confident in all 3 offensive tackles rehabs? Because if not, maybe they decide we're going to just put a safety net out there, bring in Larry Borom, just in case Jed Wills, DeJuan Jones, and or Jack Conklin are having some issues early on in the season, working their way back from all 3 getting knee surgeries. We don't want to look to James Hudson because that didn't work out so well last year. Sorry, James. So they bring in someone like Larry Borom just to spice up the competition a little bit more. Now, before we look at ESPN's edge rusher rankings, I want to show some love to some recent super thanks and some super chats we have gotten here on the channel. Levi Mayfield with a super thanks saying, PD, the MVP, let's effing go. Levi, you're the MVP. Shout out to you, man. Thank you so much, dude. Has been, you to go. Oh, no, has been. I'm going to pull the Uno reverse card. You are the GOAT. Has been absolutely electric during our Madden watch parties every Tuesday and most Fridays. So if you haven't already, come check him out, and I guarantee you will leave impressed with what has been doing so far. Ray Bidding, appreciate your work. Ray, thank you so much, dude. Always great to see you in the comment section. Jeremy Stallman is just an absolute cornerstone piece of this channel, a Mount Rushmore viewer. Jeremy, I hope you're having a great day up in the skies. Thank you so much. And if you want to get a shout out on a future Cleveland Browns report, leave a super thanks down below, and we'll get you on screen. All right, lastly, let's run through ESPN's edge rusher rankings. I don't want to take up too much more of your time because this is, well, it's what you expected. It's what I expected when I woke up this morning and saw that they dropped the edge rusher rankings. Myles Garrett, to no surprise, comes in at number 1, ahead of TJ Watt and Micah Parsons. Nick Bosa was number 1 last year, but after a bit of a down-ish year compared to what he did the season prior, he fell to 4. Maxx Crosby coming in at 5. Aidan Hutchinson jumping all the way up to 6. Man, Jags really botched that one up. Danielle Hunter at 7. And now Josh Hines-Allen, the Jacksonville edge rusher, changed his name to Josh Hines-Allen. Trey Hendrickson coming in at 9, and Brian Burns at number 10. I think one of the sillier debates that fans have is who's the best edge rusher. Like, if your guy's not number 1, it's almost as if it's an insult if you put him in at number 2. So, obviously, I come in, you come in with a lot of bias, and I'm more slanted towards Myles Garrett and the Browns. But I do think there is a lot of really compelling arguments to be said about why Myles Garrett is truly the number 1 pass rusher. But you don't have to take it from me because I come in with bias. How about all the NFL execs, coaches, and scouts that ESPN polled to get these rankings? It's not like Schefter and Jeremy Fowler just sat down and cranked them out over a box of donuts. No, they polled some of the best and brightest minds in the National Football League, and those were their responses. And here's what they said. Garrett is now in Tier 1 by himself, earning 70% of the first place votes. If you don't let me back up. Quote, if you don't double team him, he's going to fucking kill you, an NFL coordinator said. In fact, Garrett is excelling single or double teams more than 30% of the time, trailing only Micah Parsons in pass rush win rate. There's a lot of different metrics you can use to put together the best edge rusher. And there's a lot of truth to Garrett, Watt, Micah, Maxx Crosby, Bosa, all having compelling arguments for why they are the best pass rusher in football. But one argument I go back to is there is no player that causes more sleepless nights for offensive coordinators, more mid-game headaches and migraines than Myles Garrett. Don't believe me? Go ask Mike Vrabel and the Tennessee Titans, who devoted 2 players just to follow Myles Garrett wherever he went, just to shadow him. And as Garrett hopped around in the defensive line, the Tennessee Titans were forced to call a timeout. No other player in the NFL attracts that much attention. And now that Myles Garrett's got a good supporting cast around him with Darius Smith and Dalvin Tomlinson, in year 1, we saw what they were capable of. Now get ready for year 2. So, Myles Garrett, in my opinion, is the best pass rusher in the National Football League. Comes off an NFL Defensive Player of the Year performance, 14 sacks, 4 forced fumbles. Year before that, put together a second straight 16-sack performance. He's a dominant run stopper. Go ask the Chicago Bears about that in the week, 14 game, where the Bears were stopped in a short yardage situation at the end of the game to try and move the chains. Myles Garrett comes up big in every phase. Go ask the Colts about that in special teams and blocking field goals. Now, if you are ready for Browns football to be on your screen, because we're starting to get some appetizers. I wouldn't even call these appetizers. This is just the restaurant putting bread down on your table. We've all eaten the bread now. The butter's been depleted. Now we're ready for our appetizers and then the main course. So if you are ready for Browns football, make sure to like today's video before getting on out of here. I want to circle back to a super thanks we got, a super chat during our live show on Tuesday from a longtime viewer of the channel, Joshua Miller, who always asks the best questions in my opinion. Josh asked, if AB and Coach Stefanski had started in 2018 instead of a couple years later, would they have taken Baker with pick number 1? And I thought about this question overnight, Josh. I don't think they would have taken Baker. I say that because they inherited a quarterback who was playing some good football for them, especially for a franchise that was deprived of that. And they still opted to move on from Baker Mayfield with a relatively short leash of just one down injury-plagued season. So if the leash was that short on a guy that won the Browns their first playoff game in, a long time, don't you think during the pre-draft process they probably would have come to the conclusion this isn't our guy? So with that in mind, I think they would have landed, and this is probably coming with a little bit of hindsight bias here, with Josh Allen. I just think about the athleticism that Josh Allen has, and they loved that in Deshaun Watson when they pulled the trigger on that trade. The arm strength, similar to Deshaun Watson. There are a lot of traits that Josh Allen shares with some of the quarterbacks the Browns have brought on since these two took over. So, easy to say right now, but I think Allen might have been the pick if Andrew Berry was in charge in 2018. All right, we've taken up enough of your Wednesday. Let me pick a card and then get you guys on your way. We've got producer Reed hanging out with us today. What do you want to go with, buddy?
Let's go with the 8 of Hearts.
8 of Hearts? All right, I'm going to go with the, you said 8 of Hearts. I'm going to go with the 9 of Clubs.
Okay.
No, we had this one just the other day, though. Ace of Clubs. Ace of Clubs. All right, that will do it for us on today's episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you all later.